In the golden age of exploration, one name became a byword for mystery, tragedy, and the terrifying power of the unknown. This is the story of the Franklin expedition, a tale of 2 ships, 129 men, and a silence that lasted for over 150 years. In 1845, Great Britain was at the peak of its power. The Royal Navy, having conquered the seas, looked to the last great frontier, the Arctic. Their goal was to finally chart the fabled Northwest Passage, a sea route through the ice that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The man chosen to lead this historic mission was Sir John Franklin, a seasoned veteran of the Arctic. His 2 ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were marvels of their time, ice-strengthened, steam-powered, and packed with enough supplies to last for 3 years. Canned meats, biscuits, thousands of books, even a hand-cranked organ for entertainment. To the British public and the Admiralty, success was a foregone conclusion. Franklin would sail into the ice and return a hero. But once Erebus and Terror entered the labyrinth of the Canadian Arctic, they were never seen again. They sailed off the map and into legend. For 3 years, a confident silence hung over the expedition. Back home in Britain, there was little concern. Delays were expected in the Arctic. But as 1848 dawned with no word, anxiety turned to alarm. The Admiralty launched one of the largest search and rescue operations in history. Dozens of ships, funded by both the government and Franklin's determined wife, Lady Jane Franklin, set sail for the north. On a desolate stretch of rock called Beechey Island, they found the first tangible clues, the site of Franklin's first winter camp. It was an eerie, abandoned scene. Neatly stacked food tins, remnants of a blacksmith's workshop, and most chillingly, 3 graves. The headstones bore the names of sailors who had died in that first year, long before the real horror began. Beyond Beechey Island, the trail went cold. The Arctic had swallowed the expedition whole, leaving a nation to wonder what had become of its heroes. As official searches turned up nothing, a new, darker source of information began to emerge: the oral histories of the local Inuit people. For years, they shared stories with explorers and whalers, stories of seeing desperate, starving white men dragging heavy lifeboats across the barren ice. They spoke of finding abandoned camps littered with tools and bodies left unburied. Some of the most disturbing accounts described signs of cannibalism, a final, desperate act of survival. In Victorian England, these stories were dismissed as savage lies. The idea that Her Majesty's Royal Navy would resort to such a barbarity was unthinkable. The official narrative was one of heroic failure, not grim desperation. But the Inuit accounts persisted, passed down through generations, holding a truth that the rest of the world refused to see. It wasn't until the 1980s that science began to unravel the mystery from a completely different angle. Forensic anthropologist Owen Beatty led a team to Beechey Island to exhume the 3 sailors buried there. What they found was astonishing. The permafrost had preserved the bodies in a near-perfect state. But it was the analysis of their tissues that revealed a hidden killer. The men had shockingly high levels of lead in their systems. The source? The very canned food meant to keep them alive. The tins were sealed with lead solder, which had leached into the provisions. Slowly, insidiously, the crew was being poisoned. Lead poisoning causes severe physical and neurological damage, confusion, paranoia, and weakness. Combined with malnutrition, scurvy, and the brutal Arctic cold, the men were caught in a perfect storm of disaster. Their minds and bodies were failing them, just when they needed them most. The pride of the Royal Navy was being undone from the inside out. For over a century and a half, the final resting places of Erebus and Terror remained one of the world's greatest maritime mysteries. Then, in 2014, the impossible happened. A Canadian search team, guided by modern technology and, crucially, Inuit knowledge, located a shipwreck in the shallow waters of the Queen Maud Gulf. It was HMS Erebus. The discovery sent shockwaves around the world. 2 years later, the same team found her sister ship, HMS Terror, resting on the seafloor, almost perfectly preserved. It looked like a ghost ship, a time capsule from another era. Deck hatches were sealed, cannons were in place, and inside the captain's cabin, plates and wine bottles sat as if awaiting a dinner that would never be served. The locations of the ships confirmed the Inuit oral histories that had been dismissed for so long. The stories of one ship sinking and another drifting for years before going down finally had physical proof. The Inuit had known the truth all along. The discovery of the ships didn't just solve a mystery, it reframed the entire story. The Franklin expedition is more than a tale of disaster. It's a powerful lesson in hubris. It was a clash between the rigid, industrial ambition of the British Empire and the unforgiving reality of the Arctic. The expedition's leaders believed technology and resolve could conquer nature. They failed to listen to the people who had thrived in that environment for millennia. The Inuit possessed a deep understanding of the ice, the seasons, and the keys to survival, knowledge that was ignored by the very men who needed it most. Where the British saw a barren wasteland to be conquered, the Inuit saw a homeland that demanded respect and adaptation. Today, Erebus and Terror are protected as National Historic Sites of Canada. They are underwater museums, silent witnesses to a tragedy that has captivated the world for nearly 2 centuries. The 129 men who sailed with Franklin never came home. Their story isn't one of simple failure, but a complex mosaic of courage, desperation, flawed technology, and cultural arrogance. It reminds us that for all our maps and ambitions, we are fragile beings in the face of nature's immense power. And as archaeologists continue to study the wrecks and artifacts, new pieces of the puzzle emerge. But the full story, the final moments of those men as they faced their fate on the ice, may forever remain a secret, locked away in the Arctic silence. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the ice. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of history. See you next time.